Thursday night, I didn't watch Hillary Clinton's acceptance speech live. Instead, I was at the Shiva for Richard Destin's mother, and I'm proud to say that so many from our congregation showed up to be there as well, to support Richard and Esther and their beautiful family during this time. Personal relationships are paramount to building a welcoming, compassionate community, and I'm always proud of the way that the Adat Shalom community knows how to celebrate simchas together, and we also know how to comfort one another as well. Before I could even get home, I could already see dozens of Facebook messages about Hillary Clinton's acceptance speech as the first female nominee of a major political party for President of the United States. I'm not sure if the planners of the Democratic National Convention planned the convention around the Torah reading cycle. As a matter of fact, I'm almost certain that they did not. But the convention had tremendous connection to the Torah reading. You see, in this week's Parshat Pinchas, we find a story about the 5 daughters of Zelophehad. Chapter 27 of Bamidbar begins, "The daughters of Zelophehad came forward. They, those daughters, stood before Moses, Eleazar the high priest, the chieftains, and the whole assembly, and they said, 'Our father died in the wilderness, and he has left no sons. Let our father's name not be lost to his clan just because he did not have a son. Give us a holding among our father's kinsmen.' Moses brought their case before God. And God said to Moses, 'The plea of Zelophehad's daughters is just. You should give them a hereditary holding among their father's kinsmen. Transfer their father's share to them.' I have to be honest with you. I'm very proud that our country has nominated a woman as a candidate for President of the United States. But in 2016, my Yasher Koach should be heard as sarcastic because the Torah presented this feminist narrative about women demanding rights more than 3,000 years ago. Like other issues in contemporary society, I believe the Torah has already given us the direction of a moral compass, and it's up to us to bring God's will to the world. These 5 daughters, these 5 proud women, stand before Moses and all of the leaders of Israel. They stand, they don't kneel. And they say, they don't beg. They want to be recognized as rightful heirs to their part of the land of Israel, the rightful inheritance of every Jew. After the request of the women, we hear no discussion between Moses and Eleazar and the chieftains. Perhaps because the answer is so obvious, or perhaps the request is so radical. Moses immediately takes the case to God, and God replies with the strong, simple words, "Ken benot Zelophehad." Yes, the plea of Zelophehad's daughters is just. 3,000 years ago, God heard the voices of women desiring equal treatment as men, and God said, "Ken, yes, the request is just." There's a midrash in Sifrei, a collection dated to the 5th or 6th century of the Common Era that explains, when the daughters of Zelophehad heard that the land of Israel would be divided between the tribes and not include women, they all gathered to gain advice, and they said, "The mercy of humankind is not like God's mercy. Humankind shows more mercy to men than to women, but God shows mercy to all." Roughly 1,500 years ago, the rabbis understood this narrative to be feminist and used the midrash to write a social comment based on the wisdom of the Torah. They understand exactly what the Torah is saying. God said yes, the request is just. No human can say yes, not even Moses. The Torah doesn't place those words in Moses' mouth. God says it so that there should be no misunderstanding. And yet, there have been thousands of years of misunderstanding, thousands of years of women struggling for equality. In modernity, we, the Jewish people, have stood at the forefront for women's rights. From the beginning, I'm proud to say, women helped in the struggle for Israel's independence. Women fought in the War of Independence. Israel stands today as one of the only countries in the world that demands that both men and women serve in the Israel Defense Forces. In 1969, Israel elected Golda Meir as its first female prime minister. Golda Meir was elected prime minister 10 years before Margaret Thatcher of the United Kingdom. But Golda Meir's election was long after Yael Ram became the first graduate of the Israeli Air Force's prestigious pilot course in 1951. Shortly thereafter, the Israeli Air Force banned women from becoming pilots out of fear of capture by the enemy. Then in 1994, Alice Miller, an Olah, an immigrant from South Africa, sued the Israeli Air Force for her right to enter the pilot course, and she won a Supreme Court ruling. Since that point, 38 women have graduated and become pilots in the Israeli Air Force. As a conservative movement, we also strive for equality for women, ordaining women rabbis, allowing women to read Torah and lead services. Yet we struggle to gain equal access to the Kotel. I had the honor of standing behind the women's section and praying at the Kotel at the 25th anniversary of Women at the Wall, and it was moving. When I think of women's rights in the religious realm, I think of my mother. Raised Orthodox, she heard her father, Nathan, for whom I am named. She heard her father's friends joke with him that he only had 2 daughters. Who would possibly say Kaddish for him when he died? Who would possibly remember Papa Nathan? You know who said Kaddish for him? My mom. 21 years old when he passed away, my mom said Kaddish 3 times a day to remember Papa Nathan. And we all remember Papa Nathan. I myself have experienced a journey toward feminism. I can summarize the journey for you very quickly. I love and respect my mother, and I love and respect my wife, but I don't think I was truly a feminist until I had a daughter, and then I had a second. I don't ask for religious equality, meaning to say that I don't think my 2 daughters should be required to do a man's responsibility in the service, but I think they should have every right. I'm not endorsing either candidate, but as Americans, we should all appreciate the watershed moment that just occurred this week. I appreciate how Hillary Clinton has paved new roads for my daughters, opened new opportunities. I appreciate how America has moved closer to God's will by finally recognizing the rights of the daughters of Zelophehad. May we as Jews and as Americans continue to move society closer to godliness, where the just demands are met with simple ken, yes. And may we continue to fulfill our mission of shining the light of Torah on injustice everywhere. Shabbat Shalom.